Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. We just passed 250 subs. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I hope I can continue to make great content you guys will enjoy in the future. Now, the Quick Lane Bowl is between the New Mexico State Aggies and the Bowling Green Falcons. Who do I think is going to win this bowl game? Let's break it down. Now, New Mexico State is 6-6. As an independent school this season, and Jerry Kill's in his first season as the head coach of the Aggies, and he's done a decent job getting them to a bowl game this year. And they lost in week 0 to Nevada 23-12 at home. That was a tough loss. Then they lost at Minnesota 38-0. They couldn't do anything there. Then they lost at UTEP 20-13. Then they lost at Wisconsin 66-7. So just a tough stretch there. But then they bounced back and beat Hawaii 45-26 at home. Then they lost to FIU 21-7 at home. That was a bad loss. Then they beat their rivals New Mexico 21-9, and that was a good win. Then they had their game against San Jose State postponed. It never got made up. Then they won at UMass 23-13. Then they beat Lamar 51-14. Then they lost at Missouri 45-14. And then they beat Liberty on the road 49-14. And then in the final game of the regular season, they had a makeup game against Valparaiso, and they beat them 65-3 to finish the season 6-6 and make a bowl game. And quarterback Diego Pavia is 84-161 for 1,283 yards, 11 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and 443 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. He's been solid for New Mexico State this season. He's a dual-threat quarterback. He can run, he can throw. He does have some accuracy issues, but when he passes the ball well, New Mexico State's offense can really get going. And running back Star Thomas has 99 attempts for 477 yards and 5 touchdowns and 133 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. He's New Mexico State's top running back, but they have a few other running backs that they use as well. And wide receiver Justice Powers has 19 receptions for 398 yards and a touchdown. And on the defense side of the ball, linebacker Chris Dodge has 101 total tackles, 63 solo tackles, 5 sacks, and a forced fumble. Linebacker Trevor Brohard has 66 total tackles, 37 solo tackles, and a sack. And defensive back Bryce Jackson has 60 total tackles, 42 solo tackles, and 2 interceptions. And New Mexico State has some good players on both sides of the ball, and they've been pretty solid on offense and defense this season. I would say their defense has played a little bit better than their offense, but both sides of the ball have definitely helped New Mexico State win games this year. And on the Bowling Green side, they are 6-6 and 5-3 in the MAC this season. And Scott Loeffler, he's been the head coach at Bowling Green for 4 seasons, and this is the first year they have finally broken through and made a bowl game, and they've had their best season yet under Scott Loeffler. In week 1, they lost at UCLA 45-17. That was a tough loss. Then they lost to Eastern Kentucky 59-57 in 7 overtimes. That game was a barn burner, and they just came up on the wrong side of the 2-point conversions. Then they beat Marshall 34-31 in overtime, and that was a good win. Then they lost at Mississippi State 45-14. That was a tough loss. Then they won at Akron 31-28. Then they lost to Buffalo 38-7. Then they beat Miami, Ohio 17-13. Then they won at Central Michigan 34-18. Then they beat Western Michigan 13-9, so they had a good stretch of games there. Then they lost to Kent State at home 40-6. That was a tough loss. Then they won at Toledo 42-35, and that was a great win to beat the MAC champion. And then they lost at Ohio 38-14 in the final game of the regular season to finish the season at 6-6. And quarterback Matt McDonald is 230 of 375 for 2,639 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And he has a rushing touchdown on the season. And Matt McDonald, he's been pretty solid at quarterback for Bowling Green this season. He doesn't have too many interceptions, and he throws the ball pretty well. He does not have any rushing ability for the most part, but he has had a good season for Bowling Green. And running back Jason Patterson is 129 attempts for 560 yards and a touchdown. Again, like New Mexico State, Bowling Green has a plethora of running backs that they use. And wide receiver Odeo Hilaire has 54 receptions for 704 yards and 6 touchdowns. And on the defense side of the ball, safety Chris Bacon has 77 total tackles, 53 solo tackles, an interception, a forced fumble. Linebacker DJ Taylor has 75 total tackles, 36 solo tackles, 1.5 sacks, and 2 interceptions. And linebacker Darren Anders has 69 total tackles, 35 solo tackles, 1.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. And Bowling Green, their defense has played a lot of teams this season that are really good on offense, and that has definitely inflated their numbers. That's definitely made Bowling Green's defensive numbers not look too good, especially that 7 overtime game against Eastern Kentucky. A lot of yards were put up in that game, and they played UCLA, Mississippi State. So Bowling Green's defense is not as bad as the numbers would suggest, but they have struggled at times on defense. And on offense, Bowling Green is fairly solid on offense. They do struggle at times to score, but for the most part, their offense has been pretty good. So who do I think is going to win the Quick Lane Bowl? This game is no opt-outs and no transfer portal players. Both teams want to be in this bowl game. All their players want to win this bowl game. Both head coaches want to win this bowl game. Jerry Kill will be his first bowl win at New Mexico State, and Scott Loeffler will be his first bowl win at Bowling Green. Both teams are going to really try hard to win this game. New Mexico State is an independent, so they play a different type schedule than Bowling Green. But even though Bowling Green's in the MAC was a little bit tougher this year, and they played pretty well against a lot of MAC teams, especially Toledo, but they did have some games where they played very poorly, and they also had a tough non-conference, which made Bowling Green's numbers look bad. But New Mexico State has a solid offense. They have a dual-threat quarterback, which is going to be tough for Bowling Green to stop in Diego Pavia. I think Jerry Kill has a really solid team, and he's definitely made New Mexico State a better team than they've been in the past. But they do have a couple wins over teams that aren't very good, and I think that really helped New Mexico State this season, because if they had to play that San Jose State game and they don't win that game, they don't even make this bowl game. But still, they are here for a reason, and they are a really solid team, and I think they're going to show up to play on both sides of the ball. Their defense has been pretty solid, and their offense, especially with a dual-threat quarterback, is going to be very tough for Bowling Green to stop. But I think Bowling Green, they had a pretty solid season in the MAC. They've beaten some decent teams in the MAC this season. Matt McDonald, he's a really solid quarterback. Scott Loeffler is going to have his team ready to play. And even though Bowling Green's defense is a bit suspect, they have played a lot of teams that have made their numbers look worse than they are. I think Bowling Green is going to beat New Mexico State 24-21 in the Quick Lane Bowl. I think New Mexico State can win this game again. They're going to be fired up. Jerry Kill is going to have his team ready to play. I think New Mexico State's offense is going to put up some numbers in this game on Bowling Green's defense, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. And I think New Mexico State's defense will be able to slow down Bowling Green's offense a little bit. But I think Bowling Green's offense is going to be able to score a little bit more on New Mexico State's defense, and I think Bowling Green's defense will step up and be able to stop New Mexico State's offense just enough. And I think Bowling Green's going to beat New Mexico State 24-21 in the Quick Lane Bowl. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think New Mexico State or Bowling Green is going to win this bowl game and why. And I will see you next time.